In the vast expanse of the cosmos, where stars danced like diamonds scattered across an endless velvet canvas, the diplomatic vessel known from its registry as Emissary 7 drifted through the asteroid belt of Theta 42. The ship's hull gleamed with 1,000 tiny scratches earned from countless diplomatic missions, each mark telling a story of encounters and negotiations that had shaped interstellar relations for decades. Inside this floating testament to human ingenuity, Ambassador Jonathan Reed stood at the observation deck, his fingers tracing the cool glass as he watched the asteroids tumble past in their ancient, gravity-bound waltz. The mission brief lay open on the console behind him, its holographic display casting faint blue light across the room. For 20 years, Reed had served humanity's interests among the stars, navigating the complex web of alien politics and cultural nuances that defined interstellar diplomacy. His reputation for calm negotiation and cultural sensitivity had earned him postings across half the known galaxy, but nothing could have prepared him for this assignment. The Galactic Council had tasked him with establishing formal relations with the enigmatic Velari Empire, a civilization shrouded in mystery and protected by technology far beyond human understanding. Through the window, Reed caught sight of his reflection, a man in his late 40s, his dark hair showing the first traces of silver at the temples, his eyes bearing the weight of years spent bridging worlds. He straightened his diplomatic sash, the traditional earth-blue fabric adorned with subtle patterns representing humanity's diverse cultures. The gesture was automatic, a habit ingrained from years of meeting alien dignitaries who often judged humans by their attention to detail and respect for protocol. As the ship's AI announced their approach to the designated rendezvous point, Reed felt the familiar mix of excitement and apprehension that always preceded a first contact scenario. The Velari were known primarily through second-hand accounts and fragmented transmissions intercepted by deep space probes. Their empire spanned dozens of star systems, yet they maintained an isolationist policy that puzzled even the most experienced Xena diplomats. The fact that they had agreed to meet at all suggested a significant shift in their foreign policy, one that could either present unprecedented opportunities for humanity or herald dangers beyond comprehension. Reed reviewed the limited intelligence available about the Velari delegation. They would be led by Princess Lariah, fourth in line to their imperial throne. According to the few recorded observations, she possessed remarkable beauty even by human standards, a quality universally recognized across species, though its manifestation varied widely. Her reputation among other races spoke of a being both captivating and commanding, whose presence alone could sway negotiations without uttering a single word. The ambassador's mind drifted to the cultural artifacts displayed throughout the ship, carefully selected pieces meant to represent humanity's achievements while avoiding any potentially offensive symbolism. A miniature replica of the Voyager Golden Record rotated slowly in its display case, symbolizing humanity's first tentative steps toward communicating with the unknown. Beside it, a holographic display showcased Earth's diverse ecosystems, a reminder of the planet's precious uniqueness in a galaxy of wonders. As the ship's navigation system confirmed their arrival at the coordinates provided by the Velari, Reed took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle more firmly on his shoulders. This meeting wasn't just about establishing diplomatic relations. It represented humanity's chance to prove itself worthy of standing alongside the galaxy's elder civilizations. The fate of future interactions between humans and the mysterious Velari rested largely on the impressions formed in the coming hours. The transition from anticipation to reality occurred with breathtaking suddenness. Without warning, the asteroid field seemed to shimmer and distort, as if space itself had become liquid. Reed gripped the railing as the ship's sensors registered impossible readings. Gravitational fluctuations that defied conventional physics, electromagnetic bursts that should have fried their systems, yet somehow passed harmlessly through the diplomatic vessel. From this cosmic disturbance emerged a craft unlike anything humanity had encountered before. The Velari vessel materialized not through conventional propulsion but through what appeared to be folding space itself. Its surface flowed like liquid crystal, constantly shifting between translucent and reflective states, creating the illusion of multiple dimensions existing simultaneously within its structure. As it approached, the ship generated a localized field that caused nearby asteroids to orbit around it in perfect harmony, as if paying homage to their superior technology. A boarding tunnel extended from the Velari vessel, connecting with Emissary 7 in a manner that defied known engineering principles. There was no physical contact, yet a stable pathway formed between the ships. The air within the tunnel shimmered with colors that seemed to pulse with an inner life, suggesting some form of energy containment rather than conventional matter. Reed's heart pounded as he watched the entrance, knowing that history was unfolding before his eyes. Then she appeared. Princess Lariah emerged from the tunnel with a grace that transcended mere movement. It was as if the universe itself bent slightly to accommodate her presence. Her form was humanoid enough to be recognizable, yet every aspect of her being spoke of alien origin. Her skin radiated a soft luminescence, cycling through iridescent hues that seemed to respond to her emotions. Eyes that appeared to contain entire galaxies regarded Reed with an intensity that made his training and experience feel suddenly inadequate. Her hair, if it could be called that, floated in defiance of gravity, composed of what looked like threads of pure starlight woven into intricate patterns that shifted continuously. The garment she wore appeared to be alive, flowing across her body in waves of color that seemed to capture and reflect the essence of surrounding space. Around her neck hung an ornament that pulsed with a rhythm matching the ship's own energy field, suggesting it was more than mere jewelry. Most striking was the aura of power that surrounded her, yet it carried none of the arrogance Reed had encountered in other royal figures. Instead, it manifested as a quiet confidence that filled the room without overwhelming it. When she moved toward him, her steps created subtle ripples in the air, as if the very fabric of space-time acknowledged her passage. The translator implanted in Reed's temporal bone struggled to process the complex harmonic language emanating from her, eventually rendering it into elegant, precise English that carried undertones of musical resonance. "I am Lariah," she announced, her voice resonating through multiple frequencies simultaneously, fourth daughter of the eternal star cluster, keeper of the celestial archives. The titles carried weight beyond their literal meaning, speaking of responsibilities and powers that Earth's diplomats couldn't fully comprehend. Yet beneath the grandeur, Reed detected something unexpected, a genuine curiosity about the humans standing before her. The initial exchange followed established diplomatic protocols, though rendered surreal by the context. Reed presented his credentials while maintaining eye contact with the princess, aware that looking away might be interpreted as weakness. Through the corner of his vision, he noticed his security team shifting uncomfortably, their weapons appearing primitive and insignificant against the backdrop of Veilari technology. The princess, however, showed no interest in their presence, focusing instead on the human diplomat. "Your people show remarkable courage," Lariah observed, her words forming crystalline patterns in the air before fading, "to venture so far from your home world with such limited means." She gestured toward the holographic displays Reed had arranged, her hand movements creating trails of bioluminescent energy that lingered momentarily before dissolving. "Yet I sense a determination in you. A spark of potential that my kindred find intriguing." The conversation developed gradually, moving from formalities to more substantive topics. Reed found himself explaining Earth's political landscape, careful to balance honesty with strategic ambiguity. Each time he spoke, Lariah's expression shifted subtly, her luminous features responding to his words with patterns that seemed to record and analyze their content. The translator occasionally stumbled over concepts unique to human culture, requiring Reed to improvise explanations that bridged the gap between their vastly different perspectives. What struck Reed most profoundly was how the princess processed information. Unlike many alien species he'd encountered, who required elaborate demonstrations or technical explanations, Lariah seemed to grasp complex ideas almost instantly. When Reed described Earth's environmental challenges, she didn't ask for data or statistics. Instead, she reached out with a tendril of energy that briefly touched his temple, causing a cascade of images from his memories to flash before his eyes. He realized with a shock that she was experiencing Earth through his recollections, sharing his personal connection to the planet's beauty and fragility. This intimate exchange marked a turning point in their interaction. The princess withdrew her energy tentatively, regarding Reed with renewed interest. "You carry your world within you," she mused, her voice carrying tones of wonder. "Not just as ambassador, but as living chronicle." She circled him slowly, her movements creating subtle disturbances in the ship's artificial gravity. "Tell me, human diplomat, what drives your species to reach beyond your solar boundaries when so much remains unresolved at home?" Reed's response came not from diplomatic training but from the core of his being. He spoke of humanity's insatiable curiosity, the drive to understand and connect with the unknown, the hope that learning from others might help solve their own challenges. As he talked, he noticed something extraordinary. The patterns in Lariah's skin began to synchronize with his speech rhythms, as if her very biology responded to the authenticity of his words. Their discussion continued well beyond the scheduled time, touching upon everything from art and music to philosophy and science. With each passing moment, The gulf between their species seemed less insurmountable. Yet beneath the growing rapport, Reed sensed a deeper purpose to the princess's questions, as if she sought something specific in humanity's character that went beyond mere diplomatic suitability. The meeting progressed into realms neither party had anticipated. As Reed shared stories of human resilience during Earth's darkest hours, tales of individuals sacrificing everything for strangers, of communities rebuilding after disasters, of scientists working tirelessly against overwhelming odds, Princess Lyria's demeanor transformed. Her previously composed countenance gave way to expressions Reed hadn't thought possible in an alien face: awe, confusion, and something resembling profound sadness. "You speak of these acts," she interrupted, her voice trembling across multiple octaves, "as if they are common occurrences. As if risking oneself for others is natural rather than extraordinary." She paused, her luminous eyes fixed on Reed with unsettling intensity. "Among my people, such behavior is theoretical. We have forgotten how to act without calculation, without weighing infinite variables." The revelation stunned Reed. Here was a representative of one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, confessing a fundamental limitation that humanity had long considered a strength. Lyria paced along the observation deck, her movements now less fluid, as if struggling with an internal conflict. "We have mastered control over matter and energy, bent space-time to our will, preserved our consciousness across millennia. Yet we have lost." She hesitated, searching for the right translation. "The ability to act from the heart rather than the algorithm." Reed watched as the princess reached out to touch the miniature replica of the Voyager golden record. Her fingers hovered above it, creating a halo of interference that made the artifact spin faster. "This object," she said, her voice carrying layers of emotion, "speaks of hope and vulnerability. Your species sent it into the void, expecting nothing in return except perhaps understanding. Such faith in the unknown." She turned back to Reed, her normally controlled features betraying something akin to envy. "It is beautiful." The admission seemed to cost her dearly. For several moments, the only sounds were the gentle hum of the ship's systems and the distant creak of metal expanding in space. Reed understood that this confession went beyond simple admiration. It represented a fundamental challenge to everything the Velari believed about progress and civilization. Their society, built upon absolute logic and calculated precision, had achieved technological marvels but at a price Reed could barely comprehend. "Among my people," Lyria continued, her voice dropping to a whisper that still resonated through the chamber, "such emotional responses are considered inefficient, dangerous, even. Yet watching you recount these stories, feeling your genuine passion." She pressed her hands together, creating a small vortex of light between them. "I find myself questioning everything I have been taught about strength and wisdom." The princess moved closer to Reed, her presence filling the room with an energy that seemed to bend reality itself. "You humans possess something we have lost, the ability to act without complete knowledge, to trust in factors beyond calculation, to risk everything based on faith alone." She paused, studying Reed's face as if searching for confirmation of her theory. "Is this why your species has survived despite its vulnerabilities? Despite possessing such limited technology compared to ours?" Reed felt the weight of the question pressing down on him. This wasn't merely academic curiosity. The princess's entire body language suggested she was grappling with revelations that challenged the foundation of her civilization. Her normally precise movements had become more human-like in their uncertainty, and the patterns in her skin shifted erratically, reflecting inner turmoil. "You've spoken of your people's achievements," Reed ventured carefully, "but perhaps true advancement isn't measured solely by technological capability. Maybe it's also about preserving those qualities that make us, essentially, alive." He gestured toward the holographic display of Earth's ecosystems. "Our planet's diversity, our capacity for compassion, our willingness to take risks. These aren't weaknesses to be overcome, but strengths to be nurtured." Lyria's reaction was immediate and profound. Her entire form seemed to vibrate with conflicting energies, creating a visible distortion in the air around her. "Your words resonate within me," she admitted, her voice layered with harmonics that suggested deep internal processing. "They trigger ancient memories buried beneath layers of logical constructs." She raised her hands, examining them as if seeing them for the first time. We have become prisoners of our own perfection, trapped within parameters of efficiency that leave no room for chaos. The realization seemed to physically affect her. Her previously flawless composure fractured, revealing glimpses of raw emotion that pulsed through her bioluminescent skin in waves. "Your species faces extinction-level threats," she stated, her voice carrying both wonder and concern. "Yet you continue to create art, to fall in love, to sacrifice for ideals that cannot be quantified. Tell me, Ambassador, how do you maintain such faith in the face of uncertainty?" Tension thickened the air between them as Reed considered his response. Beyond the observation windows, the asteroid field had rearranged itself into new patterns, mirroring the shifting dynamics of their conversation. He became acutely aware of the historic nature of this moment, not just between two species, but within the princess herself. Something fundamental was changing in her perception, and through her, potentially in the entire Velari civilization. The atmosphere aboard Emissary 7 grew heavier with each passing moment, charged with implications that extended far beyond the immediate diplomatic encounter. Reed's tactical display showed increasing activity from the Velari vessel, energy signatures spiking erratically, structural integrity fields fluctuating in ways that suggested internal conflict. The princess's confession had triggered something within her own ship systems, perhaps reflecting corresponding turmoil among her crew or advisors. "We cannot allow this to continue," a new voice declared, emerging from the shimmering boarding tunnel. 3 Velari warriors materialized, their forms even more imposing than Laraya's, radiating authority that seemed to compress space around them. Their skin patterns pulsed with aggressive red and violet hues, creating an aura of barely contained violence. The lead figure, identified by subtle geometric patterns on his forehead as Commander Vorthal, moved with military precision toward the princess. "Honored one," Vorthal addressed Laraya, his voice carrying tones that made the ship's metal groan in sympathetic vibration. "You jeopardize centuries of doctrine with these emotions." His gaze swept dismissively over Reed, dismissing the human as irrelevant to their internal conflict. "The protocols are clear. Exposure to primitive species must be strictly controlled to prevent contamination of our societal matrix." Laraya turned to face her subordinate, her earlier vulnerability replaced by regal authority. "Commander, you misunderstand the nature of contamination," she countered, her voice weaving through the chamber with crystalline clarity. "It is not their primitiveness that threatens us, but their authenticity. Their uncalculated courage." She gestured toward Reed, creating a protective energy field around him that hummed with defiance. Vorthal's response came in the form of a subtle energy pulse that caused the ship's lights to flicker and equipment to short-circuit momentarily. "Your Highness, forgive my bluntness, but your recent behavior suggests precisely the type of contamination we feared. These humans," he spat the word with distaste, "their irrationality, their emotional volatility, they threaten the very foundations of our civilization." Reed stepped forward, breaking protocol but driven by instinct. "Commander Vorthal," he began, his voice steady despite the palpable tension, "your concern is understandable, but perhaps misdirected. The princess's insights could represent evolution rather than contamination." He addressed Laraya directly, ignoring the warrior's threatening postures. "Your people have achieved incredible technological mastery, but at what cost to your spirit? Humanity's so-called primitive traits might offer something valuable to your society." The command center of the Velari vessel flared with intense energy, visible through the observation windows as cascading waves of light. Laraya's eyes widened as she processed the implications. Her crew was preparing to intervene directly, possibly willing to terminate the meeting rather than risk further cultural contamination. The crisis deepened as additional warrior forms appeared in the boarding tunnel, their weapons generating quantum fields that made the very air crackle with potential violence. "This situation requires immediate resolution," Vorthal declared, raising his hand in a gesture that could only mean imminent action. "Honored one, you must return to the vessel immediately. The Council demands it." His warriors spread out in a tactical formation, cutting off potential escape routes while maintaining a respectful distance from their princess, a distance that seemed to shrink with each passing second. Laraya's response surprised everyone present. She stepped between Reed and her warriors, her entire form radiating with an energy that made the ship systems protest violently. "No," she stated, her voice resonating through multiple dimensions simultaneously. "For the first time in our history, we stand at a crossroads. We can continue down our path of calculated perfection, or we can embrace the possibility of growth through what you call contamination. She turned to face her commander, her eyes blazing with determination. I choose growth. The declaration sent shockwaves through the diplomatic chamber. Equipment sparked and failed, gravity fields fluctuated wildly, and the asteroid field outside began spinning in chaotic patterns. Through it all, Reed remained rooted to his position, realizing that the outcome of this confrontation would determine not just the success of his mission, but potentially the future relationship between two civilizations. Time seemed to fracture as the standoff intensified. Laraya's protective field around Reed expanded, pushing against the Velari warriors' quantum barriers with increasing force. The resulting energy feedback created a kaleidoscope of colors that danced across the walls, painting the crisis in vivid strokes of light and shadow. Reed watched as the princess's decision rippled through her warriors' formations, causing momentary hesitation in their usually impeccable discipline. Consider the implications, Laraya urged her commander, her voice weaving through the turbulent energy like a thread of pure conviction. Our society stagnates beneath the weight of perfection. Every decision filtered through infinite calculations, every action scrubbed of spontaneity. We have become machines operating within biological forms. She gestured toward the failing ship systems, their erratic behavior mirroring the chaos she proposed embracing. Even our technology rebels against such sterile existence. Vorthal's response came not in words but in action. The energy signature of the Velari vessel shifted dramatically, creating a localized temporal distortion that made seconds stretch into minutes. Reed felt the hairs on his arms rise as time itself seemed to hesitate, torn between the princess's revolutionary stance and her warriors' programmed loyalty to tradition. Through the distorted atmosphere, he caught glimpses of activity on the Velari ship. Crew members moving with unusual urgency, energy conduits glowing brighter than safety protocols would normally allow. This is madness. Vorthal finally erupted, his voice cracking through multiple dimensions simultaneously. You would sacrifice millennia of progress for what? Human emotion? Their unpredictable nature. He pointed an accusing finger at Reed, whose presence now served as the focal point of this cultural earthquake. Look at him. His species builds monuments to war, destroys its own environment, clings to superstition in the face of scientific truth. To Reed's astonishment, Laraya laughed, a sound that resonated through the chamber like chimes in a cosmic wind. Exactly, she exclaimed, her bioluminescent patterns dancing with uncharacteristic wildness. They build and destroy, yes, but they also rebuild. They fight wars yet create symphonies. They poison their world but work tirelessly to heal it. Their contradictions are not flaws, Commander. They are the essence of life itself. She turned to Reed, her eyes reflecting galaxies in turmoil. Tell them, human diplomat. Explain to my people what it means to be imperfectly, gloriously alive. Before Reed could respond, the temporal distortion reached its peak. Objects in the room began moving in reverse, then forward, then sideways through dimensions Reed's mind struggled to comprehend. The Velari warriors' weapons charged with lethal intent, their quantum fields overlapping in dangerous configurations. Yet through this chaos, something extraordinary occurred. The energy emanating from Laraya began synchronizing with the ship's failing systems, creating a new pattern that neither completely rejected nor accepted the traditional Velari order. You speak of sacrifice, Laraya addressed her warriors, her voice threading through the temporal anomalies with crystalline clarity. But what greater sacrifice could there be than setting aside our perfect calculations to embrace uncertainty? What greater strength than admitting we might learn from those we consider lesser? She extended both hands, creating a bridge of energy that connected her to both her warriors and to Reed. This human stands before us not as inferior, but as teacher. His species demonstrates daily the courage to exist without guarantees, to act without complete knowledge. Is this not the true essence of evolution? The crisis reached its zenith as the Velari vessel began broadcasting emergency signals across subspace frequencies. Reed's tactical display showed increasing activity from other Velari ships in nearby systems, reinforcements approaching at maximum velocity. Yet amidst this escalation, something unprecedented occurred. Individual Velari warriors began displaying signs of internal conflict, their strict formations wavering as if their programming struggled to process their princess's radical declarations. "You demand proof?" Lariah challenged, sensing the hesitation in her ranks. "Very well." She turned to face Reed fully, her entire presence radiating with purpose. "Ambassador, I propose a demonstration of human bravery that even my people cannot deny." Before Reed could respond, she activated a device on her wrist, causing the entire diplomatic chamber to transform into a representation of deep space, complete with realistic depictions of radiation storms, micrometeorite fields, and gravitational anomalies. "This simulation represents actual conditions our scout ships encountered near the galactic rim," Lariah explained, her voice carrying through the manufactured vacuum. "Survival requires precise calculation and execution. Failure means certain death." She gestured toward the swirling dangers. "I challenge you, human diplomat, to navigate this field using only your instincts and courage. Show my people what it means to act without guarantee of success." Reed understood the significance of the moment. This wasn't merely a test of human capability. It was a referendum on the value of emotional intelligence versus pure calculation. As he prepared to accept the challenge, he noticed something remarkable. The patterns in Lariah's skin had stabilized into a configuration that matched the chaos of the simulated environment. Her transformation from calculating royalty to passionate advocate had reached a critical point, one that would influence not just this moment but potentially the future direction of her entire civilization. The diplomatic chamber transformed completely, its walls dissolving into a seamless representation of deep space that defied conventional physics. Gravity shifted erratically, pulling at Reed from multiple directions simultaneously as radiation bursts painted the void with deadly streaks of color. Micrometeorites whizzed past at relativistic speeds, their trajectories too complex for even the most advanced predictive algorithms to calculate accurately. Yet within this manufactured chaos, Reed detected a pattern, not in the hazards themselves, but in how they interacted with the energy field surrounding him. "You may begin when ready," Lariah announced, her voice carrying through the simulated vacuum with crystalline clarity. Her warriors maintained defensive positions, their quantum shields generating protective fields that kept the worst of the radiation at bay. Reed noticed that their usual precision had faltered slightly, their formations showing cracks of uncertainty that mirrored the internal conflict gripping their civilization. Drawing upon decades of diplomatic experience, Reed began moving through the hazardous field, trusting instincts honed by years of navigating equally treacherous political landscapes. Each step required split-second decisions that defied logical calculation, dodging micrometeorites by fractions of a millimeter, timing movements between radiation pulses with intuitive precision. The princess watched intently, her bioluminescent patterns recording every movement, every choice, every moment of apparent randomness that somehow resulted in survival. "What drives you?" Lariah asked suddenly, her voice resonating through multiple dimensions simultaneously. "How do you know which way to move when calculation is impossible?" Her warriors leaned forward unconsciously, their disciplined postures giving way to genuine curiosity. Even Commander Vorthal's stern expression softened slightly as he observed the human's seemingly impossible navigation through the deadly field. "Faith," Reed replied, twisting to avoid a particularly dense radiation burst. "Not religious faith necessarily, though that helps some. It's faith in the basic goodness of life, in the validity of taking risks for something greater than oneself." He executed a complex maneuver that brought him closer to the princess, his movements becoming increasingly confident. We humans have learned that sometimes the greatest achievements come from stepping into the unknown without complete understanding. The simulation intensified, introducing new variables that pushed Reed's abilities to their limit. Gravitational waves began rippling through the chamber, creating zones of extreme compression and expansion that threatened to crush or disintegrate anything caught within them. Yet Reed adapted with remarkable fluidity, his body responding to danger with an elegance that seemed to transcend mere reflex. The princess's warriors exchanged glances, their perfectly synchronized movements faltering as they processed what they were witnessing. "You're doing more than surviving," Lariah observed, her voice carrying tones of wonder. "You're dancing with the chaos, embracing it as partner rather than enemy." She extended her hand, creating a temporary safe zone around Reed as he completed another impossible maneuver. "Our people see chaos as something to be eliminated, controlled. You humans." She paused, her luminous eyes reflecting galaxies in turmoil. You seem to thrive within it. The revelation struck a chord deep within the Veilari observers. Reed noticed subtle changes in their posture, their rigid military precision giving way to more organic movements. Even the patterns in their skin began shifting erratically, mimicking the chaotic dance Reed performed through the hazardous field. The crisis had evolved from confrontation to something far more profound, a fundamental questioning of everything the Veilari believed about strength, survival, and progress. This is what you've lost, Reed stated, pausing momentarily within a relatively stable zone. Not technological superiority or intellectual capability, but the ability to exist comfortably within uncertainty. To trust that sometimes the best course of action isn't the most calculated one. He gestured toward the swirling dangers around them. Your people have become so adept at controlling variables that you've forgotten how to function without complete control. Laraya's response came in the form of an energy pulse that temporarily suspended the simulation. Show us more, she requested, her voice layered with harmonics that suggested deep internal processing. Demonstrate not just survival, but creation within chaos. At her command, the simulation shifted again, introducing elements of raw stellar matter, quantum fluctuations, and temporal distortions that created areas where cause and effect became inverted. As Reed navigated this new level of complexity, he realized he was participating in something far greater than a simple demonstration. Each successful maneuver, each intuitive adaptation to changing conditions, served as living proof of humanity's unique approach to existence. The Veilari warriors began moving in synchronization with his patterns, their previously rigid formations evolving into something more fluid and responsive. Even the energy signatures from their vessel reflected this transformation, showing signs of adapting to incorporate elements of controlled unpredictability. The princess watched with growing fascination as her own people began mirroring Reed's movements, their perfect symmetry fracturing into something more dynamic and alive. Could this be our next evolutionary step? She wondered aloud, her voice carrying both hope and trepidation. To reintegrate what we sacrificed in pursuit of perfection? The question hung in the air, charged with implications that extended far beyond this single diplomatic encounter, suggesting possibilities that could reshape the very foundation of Veilari civilization. Against the backdrop of the still active simulation, Reed found himself facing a decision that transcended diplomatic protocol. The princess's transformation from calculating ruler to passionate advocate had reached a critical threshold, and the Veilari warrior's rigid adherence to tradition was visibly crumbling. Yet the opportunity before him demanded more than just completing the demonstration. It required embracing the very chaos he had been navigating. With a deep breath, Reed deactivated his personal stabilizers, allowing the full force of the simulated environment to affect him. The effect was immediate and profound. Gravity fluctuations pulled at him from all directions, radiation bursts seared his protective field with alarming intensity, and micrometeorite fields created a constant threat of annihilation. Yet within this heightened state of vulnerability, he discovered something unexpected. His movements became more fluid, more responsive, as if his body had been waiting for permission to fully engage with the chaos. "You're mad," Commander Vorthal protested, his voice crackling with genuine concern. "Even with our shielding, such exposure is dangerous." The other warriors showed similar distress, their formations breaking down completely as they watched their princess observe Reed's reckless demonstration with obvious approval. "Mad," Reed countered, executing a complex series of maneuvers that brought him closer to Laraya. "Or simply human." He allowed himself to be caught briefly in a gravitational wave, using its momentum to perform a spinning motion that avoided 3 converging micrometeorites. "Your people have forgotten that sometimes the greatest strength lies in accepting vulnerability, in acknowledging that complete control is an illusion." The princess's response was immediate and profound. She stepped forward, deactivating her own protective fields and allowing the simulated environment to affect her directly. Her luminous form reacted spectacularly to the various hazards, her bioluminescent patterns shifting in response to radiation, her energy fields interacting with gravitational waves in ways that created dazzling displays of light. "Yes," she breathed, her voice resonating through multiple dimensions simultaneously. "This is what we've lost, the ability to adapt organically to our environment rather than impose artificial order." The demonstration evolved into something beyond either species' expectations. Reed and Laraya began moving in tandem through the hazardous field, their separate approaches to chaos merging into a dance that combined human intuition with Veilari precision. Where Reed's movements were guided by instinct and experience, Laria's incorporated real-time analysis and prediction, creating a hybrid pattern that neither could have achieved alone. "You see," Laria called to her warriors, her voice carrying tones of revelation. "This is what evolution truly means. Not the elimination of imperfection, but its integration. Not the rejection of chaos, but learning to thrive within it." She reached out, her energy field brushing against Reed's in a way that caused their individual patterns to synchronize momentarily, creating a burst of light that illuminated the entire chamber. The Veilari warriors responded with something unprecedented. They began deactivating their own protective fields, stepping into the simulated chaos with hesitant steps that quickly gained confidence. Their perfect formations dissolved completely as they experimented with movement patterns that incorporated elements of both calculation and intuition. The energy signatures from their vessel reflected this transformation, showing signs of adapting to incorporate controlled unpredictability into their systems. "This changes everything," Vorthal admitted, his voice carrying both fear and wonder. "If we can learn to integrate these human traits without losing our technological advantages." He broke off as he narrowly avoided a radiation burst, his movement combining Veilari precision with newfound responsiveness. "The implications for our society." Reed watched as the crisis transformed into something extraordinary. Not just a demonstration of human capability, but a collaborative exploration of what it meant to evolve beyond artificial limitations. The princess's initial challenge had opened a door to possibilities neither species had anticipated, suggesting that true progress might lie not in choosing between perfection and imperfection, but in finding harmony between them. As the simulation continued, Reed noticed something remarkable happening within the Veilari contingent. Their previously rigid hierarchical structure was breaking down, with warriors freely exchanging observations and suggestions as they adapted to the chaotic environment. The energy patterns connecting them to their vessel showed signs of reconfiguring, incorporating elements of organic variation into systems that had once been purely deterministic. "You're witnessing a revolution," Laria observed, her voice carrying both excitement and concern. "My people have long believed that evolution ended with the achievement of technological mastery. But now..." She gestured toward her warriors, who were developing entirely new movement patterns that combined calculation with spontaneous adaptation. "Now we see that true evolution never ends. That there are always new ways to grow, new dimensions to explore." The revelation triggered something deep within the Veilari consciousness. Their vessel's energy signature shifted dramatically, creating a pulsing rhythm that synchronized with the chaotic environment rather than attempting to dominate it. Equipment aboard Emissary 7 began responding in kind, its systems adapting to the new patterns with surprising flexibility. Through the observation windows, Reed could see the asteroid field rearranging itself into complex patterns that seemed to mirror the evolving dynamics between their species. "This is what we've been missing," Laria continued, her luminous form radiating with newfound understanding. "Growth doesn't come from eliminating variables, but from learning to dance with them. From embracing uncertainty as opportunity rather than threat." She turned to face her warriors, her eyes reflecting galaxies in transformation. "Imagine what our civilization could achieve if we combined our technological mastery with the human capacity for intuitive adaptation." The implications extended far beyond the immediate diplomatic encounter. Reed watched as Vorthal and his warriors experimented with movement patterns that incorporated elements of emotional response, their reactions to hazards becoming more immediate and less calculated, yet paradoxically more effective. The princess's initial crisis of faith had evolved into a collective awakening, suggesting that the Veilari civilization might be on the verge of a fundamental transformation. "Perhaps this is why we were drawn to humanity," Laria mused, her voice weaving through the chamber like a thread of pure possibility. "Not because of your technology or resources, but because you represent something we need, something essential for our continued evolution." She extended her hand toward Reed, creating a bridge of energy that connected their forms in a pattern of mutual transformation. "Together, we might discover a new definition of progress, one that honors both calculation and chaos, both perfection and imperfection." As the simulation continued to evolve, incorporating elements contributed by both species, Reed realized they were participating in something far greater than a diplomatic demonstration. They were forging a new paradigm of cooperation that could redefine relationships between advanced and developing civilizations throughout the galaxy. The crisis that had begun with confrontation had transformed into collaboration, suggesting possibilities that extended far beyond the immediate encounter. The transformation rippled outward with escalating intensity, affecting not just the participants but the very fabric of space-time around them. Reed's tactical displays showed unprecedented fluctuations in local gravity wells, as if the combined energies of human intuition and Veilari precision were rewriting fundamental physical laws. The asteroid field outside had organized itself into complex geometric patterns that pulsed with a rhythm matching the synchronized movements of Reed, Lariah, and her warriors within the simulation. "My people have long believed that evolution follows a linear path," Lariah confessed, her voice carrying through the transformed environment with crystalline clarity. "From primitive to advanced, from chaos to order. Yet what we witness here suggests something far more profound, a spiral of development where supposedly primitive traits hold equal value to technological mastery." She executed a movement pattern that combined Veilari precision with human improvisation, creating a burst of energy that temporarily suspended all hazardous elements in the simulation. The implications penetrated deeper into Veilari consciousness with each passing moment. Reed watched as the warriors' rigid caste system began dissolving before his eyes, their hierarchical relationships transforming into something more fluid and responsive. Energy conduits on their vessel reconfigured themselves to accommodate new patterns of thought and action, creating a hybrid system that honored both calculation and spontaneity. The crisis had evolved from confrontation to revelation, challenging fundamental assumptions about progress and civilization. "This changes everything," Vorthal admitted, his voice carrying tones of both fear and wonder. "If we can integrate these human traits without losing our technological advantages." He broke off as he executed a complex maneuver that combined military precision with intuitive adaptation, avoiding 3 converging radiation bursts with a grace that seemed to surprise even himself. "The potential applications for our society." Reed witnessed something unprecedented. The Veilari vessel's quantum core began pulsing with a new rhythm, its energy signature showing characteristics of both machine and organism. The ship system started responding to emotional cues as readily as logical commands, creating a synthesis of technology and intuition that defied conventional understanding. Through the observation windows, he saw asteroids beginning to orbit in patterns that seemed to reflect musical harmonies rather than purely gravitational influences. "The universe itself seems to respond," Lariah observed, her luminous form radiating with insight. "Our attempts to impose perfect order created artificial boundaries. Now, as we embrace uncertainty." She gestured toward the transformed environment, where hazard fields had begun organizing themselves into complex, self-sustaining patterns that defied traditional physics. "We discover that chaos contains its own form of order, one that complements rather than opposes our previous understanding." The realization triggered a cascade of transformations throughout the Veilari contingent. Their communication patterns shifted from rigid protocols to more organic exchanges, incorporating emotional resonance alongside logical content. Their movement through the simulated environment evolved into a complex dance that honored both calculation and intuition, creating patterns of interaction that neither species could have achieved alone. The energy fields connecting them to their vessel showed signs of permanent adaptation, suggesting that this transformation extended beyond mere experimentation. "This is what true evolution looks like," Lariah declared, her voice resonating through multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Not the elimination of supposed imperfections, but their integration into a greater whole. Not the rejection of chaos, but learning to thrive within it." She turned to face her warriors, her eyes reflecting galaxies in transformation. "Imagine what our civilization could achieve if we combined our technological mastery with the human capacity for intuitive adaptation." The crisis had transformed into something far greater than anyone had anticipated.